Okay, let's see. Chapter 1 of Ruth. Let's get through some more of that stuff on a very basic Bible study along. Share screen. And there we go. Here we go. Mouse. Let's get that mouse setting. Okay. You can see I'm in the book of Acts here. I'm not sure why. I don't remember what the last thing I looked up. Oh, that's right. So I'm in the book of Acts because I totally did this whole computer reset thing. I downloaded some computer software cleaner thinking it'll help my computer to go faster. It erased all my passwords and stuff that I had saved. And I'm like, oh no, I'm having to log into Gmail. Like, wait, what's my password? And I guess when I open my internet, none of my pages were saved. I guess the Bible.org GT index, I guess it's parallel. I guess it starts in the book of Acts here. So, okay, guys, book of Ruth. We got through verses 1 through 13 or so. I did 2 studies, one on the first 6 verses, then one on the next 12 or 6 or 7 verses. Then I went back and talked about some stuff through these first 12 verses. I'm just going to try to read it this time, make no comment. Let's just read it straight through, see if we remember. Okay, going to start in the NASB here. All right, here we go. Now it came about in the days when the judges governed, there was a famine in the land. And a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to reside in the land of Moab with his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem in Judah. So they entered the land of Moab and remained there. Then Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They took wives for themselves, Moabite women, as wives. And they took for themselves Moabite women as wives. The name of the one was Orpah, the name of the other, Ruth. Dun, 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 dun. And they lived there about 10 years. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law to return from the land of Moab, because she had heard in the land of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them food. So she departed from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go, return each of you to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. May the Lord grant that you may find a place of rest, each one of you in the house of her husband." Then she kissed them, and they raised their voices and wept. However, they said to her, "No, but we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? Return, my daughters, go, for I am too old to have a husband. If I said I have hope, if I were even to have a husband tonight and also give birth to sons, would you therefore wait until they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it is much more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has come out against me. Okay, so 1 second, guys. Got my cats, and they are fighting with each other. So I'm gonna pause the recording. Y'all can look at verses 1 through 12 real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, here I am. I'm back. So if you have not watched one of our very basic Bible study alongs, especially then you might want to go and watch another one, because especially if you haven't watched the other two Ruths, you probably want to go watch it. I just read through this, and if you are a very beginning Bible, or you're like, I've always had a hard time reading the Bible, never known to understand it, I just read through these 12 verses, and even though it's a simple story, you're probably like, wait, I didn't catch a lot of that. We go through a bunch of random stuff in detail in the other ones. Okay, now, just to get the basic storyline, we're not going to go through a bunch of detailed stuff like I did in the other ones, just the basic storyline. But once we get to verse 13 and 14, we start going a lot slower. I'm sorry, verse 14 and 15, 16, and down. Once we get there, then we'll start picking it apart, dissecting it. I'm looking over here because my camera's up there. My little box is over there. Okay. Now it came about in the days when the judges governed. That's the time setting. After you got Adam and Eve, you got Tower of Babel, Noah's Ark, Tower of Babel. God calls it Abram, changes his name to Abraham. Got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob has a bunch of kids. Then the nation of Israel is born. Israel, yes, that nation, yeah. Moses then later led them out of Exodus, out of Egypt. The Exodus, they wandered in the wilderness. Moses dies. Joshua, Moses' second in command, he becomes in charge. He leads them into the land of Israel. Sweet. It's still called the land of Canaan, but then they beat it up. They conquered. They start calling it the land of Israel, the land of Judah. After Joshua died, so they're freshly in the land. After Joshua died, there were judges ruling the land. Not judges like with a gavel, like you're guilty, you're innocent. Not like I'm going to judge you. They just is just the word judges. I'm not sure why the English translations decided to go with the word judges, but that's what, they were just they were people who got appointed and said, hey, you're going to be in charge. And then people would come to them for help. They would go out and they would beat up the opposing armies. They would do stuff like that. They would rally the troops behind them and such. The judges were like military leaders. They were in charge, But people would worship false gods. God would send an army to attack them. The people would cry out, we're sorry, God. God would send a judge. Judge would beat up the bad guys. Everybody's happy. Israel would worship false gods. God would send foreign invaders to attack them. Oh no, we're sorry, God. God would send a judge. A judge would beat them up. Everybody would be happy. Rather, rinse, repeat. Rinse, lather, rinse, repeat. Over and over again, that cycle. Okay, so sometime in all that. Okay, yeah. So here we go. Now, it came about in the days when judges governed, there was a famine, an extreme drought, hardly any rain. All the crops are dying. When you live on the land and you're just farming and there's no rain, too much sun, yeah, that's no good. And a man of Bethlehem in Judah, okay, remember, God led them into the promised land. Moses wandered around the desert. They go in the promised land. Joshua conquers the promised land. They call it Israel and Judah. A man of Bethlehem in Judah, probably the tribe. There were 12 tribes, the tribe of Judah. Yeah. So it's kind of like if you got a country that's called America, and then one of the places in there is called America. I guess North America, then there's United States of America, so they're in the land of Judah, and there's a tribe of Judah. A man of Bethlehem in the tribe of Judah went to reside in the land of Moab with his wife and his 2 sons. Man says, hey, dudes, there's a famine in the land. What? Said, hey, dudes, there's a famine. We got to get up out of Judah and Bethlehem. We're going to go to the land of Moab. Takes his family, wife and his 2 sons, and they split. The man's name was Elimelech. The man's name was Elimelech, and the name of his wife, Naomi. The name of his 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Remember? With his wife and his 2 sons, Elimelech, Naomi, Mahlon and Chilion. Ephrathites of Bethlehem in Judah. Okay. A man of Bethlehem in Judah. Okay. Ephrathites of Bethlehem in Judah. Ephrathites, that was a clan they came from. That's the name they came from. I'm an Allen. I guess I would be an Allenite from Round Rock in Texas. I live in a town called Round Rock, live in the state of Texas. I'd be an Allenite from Round Rock, Texas, Okay. So they entered the land of Moab and remained there. Story's over. They never left. Nope. Let's keep going. Then Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, but she was left with her 2 sons. Okay, good. They can take care of her. Remember, women often, if you're widowed, no good. Women didn't have a lot of clout. They couldn't get they couldn't get jobs because there's a stigma against that kind of thing. Women were supposed to stay home, stuff like that. Okay. And they like doing that. But if they didn't have a home, let's say their husband dies, they got no home. That's no good. The home was passed from the father to the son. If you're the mother or the daughter, it's like, uh-oh. That's why they wanted to get married so bad. That's why they wanted to have kids so bad. Because to them, passing from the father to the son was the way it was the correct way. It was a good thing. They liked it. Patrilineal. Patra means father. Lineal means line. Line of the father. Patrilineal. The husband dies. Uh-oh, the patri dies. But the lineal, the sons are left. There we go. You learned a big word today. They, the sons, took for themselves Moabite women as wives. So even though they're from Judah, they took Moabite sons as wives. They're in Moab because of famine in Judah. So read somewhere Moab's like 50 miles away from Judah. Okay. The name of the one wife was Orpah. The name of the other was Ruth. They lived in Moab for about 10 years. But, so you got Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah. I'm sorry, Naomi, her sons, Mahlon and Chilion, her daughters-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth. Okay. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died. The woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband, the woman being Naomi. Naomi's left without a woman and without her sons. So they're in this foreign land. And they're in this foreign land. And all she has now are her daughters. It's no good. Oh, go get a job. It's not that easy back in ancient times. Like I said, women weren't like looked down upon. They weren't frowned upon necessarily, although there was prejudice against them, yes. But the way they viewed the world, the way they saw the world, they couldn't see it any other way. The way they saw it, men worked, women chilled at home, or they did like welfare stuff. Maybe they could. We'll get to that later. When I say welfare stuff, I don't know what the word welfare, but we'll get to that later. That chapter 2, if we ever get there. Okay. Then Naomi. Naomi arose with her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. Now this sentence is weird. The sentence structure is strange. Then she arose with her daughter-in-laws because she had heard while in the land of Moab that the Lord had visited the land of Judah by giving them food. Sweet. Sentence structure is weird because she had heard in the land of Moab that the Lord had visited his people. Okay. Yep. Let's read over here. New Living Translation. Very loose translation. Here we go. Then Naomi heard they still don't have while she was in Moab. Oh, here we go. The NABRE. She and her daughters-in-law then prepared to go back from the plateau of Moab because word had reached her there that the Lord had seen to his people's needs and given them food. So she's going to go back to Judah. The Lord paid attention to his people's needs by providing. So she's going to go back to Judah. Yay. What time? During the book of Judges, there's a book of Judges that outlines all the judges. I looked up famine. There's no famine in the book of Judges. What? We could look up stuff like lack of rain, ground is dried, no food, no water. We could look up stuff like that. Maybe someday I will. but I didn't do that. So we're not sure when during the book of Judges this happened. So Naomi, I know the book is called Ruth, but so Naomi departed from the place where she was Moab, and her two daughter-in-laws with her. And they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. So they're walking along. They're going to return. But Naomi said to her two daughter-in-laws, okay, here we go. Big speech, big monologue. Lots of monologues in the Bible. People overact. Very dramatic in the Bible. Go, return each of you to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. May the Lord grant that you may find a place of rest. It almost sounds like a prayer. May the Lord grant to you, please return, each one of in the house of her husband. Okay. So she's basically, hey, look, go back home. You don't have a husband's house to go. Well, go to your house of your mother, okay? You didn't leave the home of your father and mother and go to the home of your wife. I'm sorry, to your husband and his father. You didn't do, okay. You can't do that because your husband's died, but go back to your mother's house. I hope the Lord deals kindly with you as you have dealt with me and the husbands, right? May the Lord grant that you may find a place of rest, each one of you in the house of her husband. Well, her husbands are dead. A new husband. Go back to your mother's house. Hopefully you find husband and you find rest in the house of your husbands. Like I said, you need patrilineal. You need a husband so you can have wives, so your name will go on, right? It's like, man, sucks if you're a woman and you don't get married and have kids. I guess so. That's just kind of the way it was. The Bible is not saying, hey, this is the right way to live. Hey, this is the right way to do it. Not saying that. The Bible is recording what happened. It's working with people where they are. I'm sure if in a 1,000 years, somebody came back and they said, they were like, BJ's church records, let's read those. And they were reading like diaries from people at my church and from the past. They'd be like, wait, these people knew God and they were doing this? Why don't they know this is wrong? If they're in 1,000 years, they find the church, diary from the pastor. Wait, the pastor thought it was okay to do that? Wait, I thought the pastor was a godly man. He prayed all the time. Yes. We look back at them and say they were wrong for this reason. People will look back at us and say we were wrong. We only have the present. God works with us in the present. Okay. God's working with them where they're at. Patrilineal, that's the way it was. May the Lord grant that you may find a place of rest, each one. So she's saying, hey, she's saying, may the Lord give you husbands. However, the daughter-in-laws said, no, but we will return with you to your people. So they're Moabites. They're going to return to the Israelites. Moabites and Israelites weren't on good terms. There's like Ammonites, there's Moabites, there's Edomites, the land of Moab, the land of Ammon, the land of Edom. There's other land, there's Philistia to the south. So there are other lands, around, and they often didn't get along. They often be fighting with each other. Bam, bam. One person wants to take over another person and be fighting. It's just the way it was. They weren't keeping it real. Maybe they were keeping it too real. A little too real. Okay. So they're Moabites. They're like, no, we're going to return with you to Judah. Kind of crazy. You would think they would want to go back to their own land where they would be accepted. Now, Judah, of course, in the Old Testament, God told them to welcome the stranger and the foreigner. It doesn't mean it was easy. Doesn't mean it was easy. God had to tell them over and over again, hey guys, you were strangers in Egypt. So you know what it felt like. Welcome the stranger and foreigner. Trying to change them. See, we're talking about how, women were looked low upon. Okay, God's trying to change that. Right here, God's trying to change something in them. You were strangers in Egypt. So you know what it felt like. So accept the stranger and the widow. Right here. Hopefully Judah will accept the strain. No, we will return with you to your people. But Naomi said, return, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? So up here. Find a place to rest, each one of you in her husband's house. Find some good Moabite people. No, we'll go with you. Naomi's like, dudes, I'm too old. I can't. Naomi said, return, my daughters. I don't have sons in my womb that they may be your husbands. That's kind of weird. Kind of. She's their mother-in-law. She had sons. So she has other sons, I mean, they grow up. The ladies are kind of old. Look at it. Like I said, very dramatic. Return, go, for I am too old to have a husband. If I said I have hope, if I already even have a husband tonight, and also give birth to sons tonight. She's like, guys, my kids will be way too small. I gave you husbands. Me and Elimelech had Malian and Chilion. They were your husbands. They died. I can't give you more husbands. I'm too old. Even if I had sons tonight, This is weird to us. Like, wait, your mother-in-law is gonna have kids and you're getting married. It's weird to us, but that's the way they did it. Remember, they're trying to keep stuff in the family line. Okay. She could have kids and she could say, hey, these are not Elimelech's kids anymore, but this other guy's kids. But it's very confusing. I think the kids would go under Elimelech's name. The firstborn son would go under Elimelech's name. Then after that, they would go under the new husband. If she got married again tonight and had kids tonight and they got married, yeah. Today we wouldn't do it. Today we don't care. We don't care about that. See how different the Bible is, So they're in the book, sometime during the time of Judges, there's a famine. They leave Bethlehem from Judah. They go to Moab and they remain there. Naomi and Elimelech. And then their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Then Elimelech dies. Mahlon and Chilion took Moabite wives as for wives, Orpah and Ruth. Dun, 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 dun. Then both Mahlon and Chilion died, and Naomi's left with her two sons. So they're in Moab, a foreign country. Now Naomi's in a foreign country. Ruth and Orpah, they're in their own country. So it's okay. Then she arose and she's going to go back home because, hey, Judah's got food now. So she departed and then, hey, go back home. May the Lord deal kindly with these. You've dealt with me. May the Lord give you husbands and you can chill, with your husband and their family. No, we'll come with you, Ruth and Orpah said. Look, I can't give you sons. Go back where you can get verse 7, go back where you can get a husband. I can't give you sons. Return, my daughters, go, for I'm too old, okay? Would you wait until they were grown? Even if I had sons tonight, would you therefore refrain from marrying? Marry new people, have sons that way. No, daughters, for it is much more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has come out against me. Has it really? Or is she just saying that? We don't have any, her husband dies, which isn't the worst thing because she had two sons to take care of her. She might have been sad. They didn't necessarily get they got emotional like we did, but it seemed outward. I guess she was emotional. Yeah, why not? Her sons died. Her husband died, but she's got her two sons and she got her daughter-in-law still, but then her sons died. It's like, man, all the men in her life are dying. She's got no men to pass on. Patrilineal. Her name's going to be forgotten. Elimelech's name's going to be forgotten. It's just the way it is. And she's like, hey guys, you go and you get husbands. I don't have kids to give you husbands. I can't give myself kids through you. I can't get a husband and have a kid for you. Look, the hand of the Lord has come out against me. Now, and they raised their voices and wept again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Okay, so we're through verse 13. That's the summary. All that. Now, let's start going slow. I'm going to look at something real quick. It says, I've been speaking down here. You can't see it on the screen, but it tells me 28 minutes. Control Alt Shift H. That makes that thing you can't see disappear. So now I can't see it either. All right. So we know the storyline so far. They raised their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Okay. Then she said, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. Okay. Here we go. And they raised their voices and wept again. So now we're going to dissect. Why are they raising their voices? Okay, up here. All right. Naomi and go return. So they departed the land of Judah. Naomi, go return to your household. No, okay. Then she kissed them and they raised their voices and wept. Okay. Okay, so Naomi the first time says, hey, go return to your house. To your home. May the Lord give you husbands and a house and a family and stuff. Then she kissed her daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah, and they all raised their voices and wept. Down here. And they raised their voices and wept again after she was like, no, leave, really, go back. And I don't have husbands to give to you. Okay. I'm not going to have a family for you. We're just going to be us, So please go back home to Moab where you can actually marry and have a family. And they raised their voices and wept again. Okay. Let's look this up. Why are they raising their voices and weeping? I would be sad, but is that what it is? Are they getting overly emotional? We're like, women are, okay, let's see. We're like, women are overly emotional. We thinking, people say that, of course, that's a stereotype, but here it is. But hey, there are men who did that in the Bible too. Let's see. Raise voice, wept. Let's just see if Genesis. Oh, look at it. Okay. In full context. Oh, wait. Watch, Control F down here at the bottom left. I'm going to type in wept. Okay. Okay, Sarah turns against Hagar. She departed and wandered around the wilderness of Beersheba. So Abraham got up early in the morning, took bread, skin, and water, gave them to Hagar. She put him on his shoulder, gave her the boy, sent her away. Had to leave and go into the wilderness with her boy, water, and some bread. She departed in the wilderness with her son, some water and bread. When the water and the skin was used up, she left the boy into one of the bushes. She went and sat down opposite him. She didn't have man, and about a bow shot away, for she said, may I not see my boy die? She sat opposite him and raised her voice and wept. God heard the boy crying. The angel of God called to Hagar. Oh, okay, cool, good. What's the matter with you? Do not fear. God has heard your voice. Get up, lift the boy, and hold him in your hand. But now God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin. Ooh, sweet. God saves the day. She raised her voice and wept. Is that saying God's always going to speak? Look at this. They raised their voice and wept, but there's no angels. Control F. Angel. The bottom left, see it's red. No angels speaking. God doesn't speak from heaven. There is the word God to her people and her gods. Okay. Right here, it seems more just an emotional thing. Here is very emotional. I think God helped her. They were finna die. Okay, right here. Here's a good one. Where like women are emotional. Okay, 27:30. Jacob's deception. The stolen blessing. Remember, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now it came as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob. Esau was the firstborn. He was supposed to get the blessing. Let's see. My father. And so Jacob came to and said, my father. And Isaac said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said, I am Esau, your firstborn. Behold, my brother Esau, the hairy man. I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will touch me. Then I will be like a deceiver in his sight, and I will bring a cursing. But his mother said, Jacob's mother said to Jacob, your curse be on me, my son of him. Go get goats. So she went and brought them his mother. His mother delivered her smell. Rebecca took the best garments of her older son Esau. So dressed him up. Took Esau's garment, dressed up Jacob in him. she put the skins of the young goats on the smooth part of his neck. Remember, Jacob's like, I'm a smooth man. Esau's hairy. My father's going to recognize me. They're trying to deceive. Okay, Jacob is going to get the blessing. Rebecca's like, hey, we're going to get you the blessing. Isaac, he can't see that well. Okay. So Jacob came close to his father, and he touched him and said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands, the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brothers. So he blessed him. Are you really my son, Esau? Isaac said, I am. Okay. Now, so Jacob steals the brother's blessing. The God's like, okay, I bless you. You're going to be the family line. You're going to be the one that everything goes through. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, even though Esau was the firstborn, they tricked their dad. Their dad couldn't see that well. Tricked their dad, tricked Isaac. Look at this. His father Isaac said to him, who are you? Then Isaac, look at, I'm your firstborn, Esau. Then Isaac trembled violently and said, who then was he who hunted game and brought it to me? So oh my gosh, I blessed. Yes, and he shall be blessed. Okay. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said, bless me as well, father. They found out. Esau comes home, finds out, Isaac finds out, and he said, dude, I've already blessed your brother. No, bless me. Control F. What? Esau said to his father, do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me as well, my father. So Esau raised his voice and wept. Esau was a guy who would go out in the field and hunt. Jacob stayed at home. The way preachers often say it was Esau was a man's man, Jacob was a mama's boy. Jacob, so you got a manly man and a mama's boy. Jacob tricks the dad, gets the blessing. Esau comes in. No, dad, bless me. Esau raised his voice and wept. So, I mean, that's just what they did back then. They're very dramatic people. Let's see. Jacob kissed Rachel and raised his voice and wept. I'm guessing that's whenever. Okay, there's Rachel and Leah. I'm guessing that might be whenever Rachel. No, that's whenever he first met. Oh yeah, watch this. Oh, when Jacob. So remember Jacob and Esau. Okay, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his mother's brother Laban, his mother's brother, his uncle. When Rachel saw his uncle's daughter, that's his cousin. When Rachel saw his cousin, when Jacob saw his cousin Rachel and the sheep of his mother's brother Laban, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the flocks of his mother's brother Laban. So the sheep, so he sees his cousin Rachel, Jacob sees the sheep. He went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and waters the sheep. Okay, then Jacob kissed Rachel, raised his voice and wept. Okay, he's happy to see her. He's like, hey, cousin, kisses her, raises his voice and weeps. Okay. It's probably, I mean, Judges, hey. Now, when the angel of the Lord spoke all these words to all the sons of Israel, the people raised their voices and wept. So the people came there, Bethel, and raised their voices and wept profusely. Remember, people worship false gods. God sent enemies to attack them. The people raised their voice. Oh, we're sorry, God. We're sorry, God. Then God saves them. Yay, we're good. Then it starts over. They start worshiping false gods again. Enemy comes attack them. They raise their voice and wept. I bet that's what those two things are. So, oh, hey, right here. Here's our thing. There we go. Okay. So you can see, raise their voice, and David and the people who were with him raised their voices and wept. Okay. They buried Abner, and the king raised his voice and wept to declare that. Okay. All the people wept. Elias, Job, oldest book in the Bible, supposedly. When they looked from a distance and did not recognize him, they raised their voice and wept. Come on, Job. Job was destroyed. His family's destroyed. His house is destroyed. He's got boils, He's outside of town, which is, if Job was, is he outside of town? He probably already is. He's a farmer. His three friends came. They saw him from a distance. They raised their voices and wept. Each of them tore his robe, threw dust over their heads towards the sky. They're being very dramatic. Like they tore their, no, I'm not. Why is you got clothes, rip, you're gonna rip it. Do they rip it? That's what I've seen in a Jesus movie. Why are they gonna rip their clothes? They tore it? Did they literally tear it? Did they grab a knife and cut it? I mean, they threw dust over their head. That makes more sense. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, they didn't have a lot of clothes back then. They just didn't. You couldn't go to Target and buy clothes. People often had one set of clothes for their whole life. Sometimes people are like, hey, I'll give you a bunch of treasures and riches and stuff. If you help me, I'll give you a bunch of money and 10 changes of clothing. And people are like, whoa, that's a good deal. Money and 10 changes of clothing? No way. That's just the way it was, So to tear their robes, I guess maybe it's like, hey, these are some of my most valuable possessions. I'm so sad, I'll tear them up. I mean, is that the thought? I don't know. But tearing their robes means they're really discouraged and sad. Throwing dust over their head in the air, they're really discouraged and sad. We could look all that up, but we're not in a Bible study, Job. We're on Ruth. But when they saw Job from afar off, remember, it's how everything he had was destroyed. He had sores, boils, very painful all over him. When they saw him from a distance, they raised their voices and wept. It's just the way they did. Okay. So these girls are like very sad. You can tell raising their voice and weep is like, they're very sad. I'm saying they're being very, very overly dramatic. Maybe not. Maybe they really, really love Ruth. I mean, she's like, no, go back. And they don't. Well, Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Orpah kissed her, but Ruth clung to her. By kiss, it's not like, oh, let's smooch, let's make out, obviously. Got my Gatorade in my Starbucks cup because my wife used to work for Starbucks forever. Now she works with adults with special needs. She loves it. She loves working with them adults. They're some of the funnest people, most fun people. But we got lots of free stuff with Starbucks, lots of discounted coffee now. Don't drink near as much coffee because it's not discounted. So after I drink the Gatorade, which is rather sugary, there's not the sugary type stuff in Gatorade. After I read it, so drink it so it doesn't rot my teeth out. You got to drink a swig of water. That's why you'll see me hold one cup up and drink it, then another cup. Okay, all done with adventures in the boring life of BJ. Here we go. People raising their voices and weeping. Okay. Ruth clung to her. I'm going to look up that word clung. Now, New American Standard Bible. New American Standard Bible. The reason I'll look it up in the same translation, because the super smart English scholars who've had tons of education have studied this a lot. They're very wise. They know the ancient languages, Hebrew, Aramaic wasn't yet. I've heard of stuff like Akkadian, Ugaritic, Canaanite. That was a language? Canaanite. People who know, maybe Egyptian, people who know those languages, especially Hebrew, they translate it. They translated this, whatever that Hebrew word is, clung. Well, maybe it's not a word, maybe it's a phrase. Maybe clung to her is one word in Hebrew. I'm not sure, but they translated clung. So I'm just wondering. So I'd still go to the NASB, because in ESV, let's see, Ruth clung to her. Net, New English Translation, but Ruth clung tightly to her. Okay, the NET is literal, but it will use more words because it's trying to say this is what that word means. But Ruth clung tightly to her. CSB, Ruth clung to her. Ruth clung to her, but Ruth clung to her, but Ruth clung tightly to Naomi. Yeah. So Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. He kissed her goodbye. Goodbye. That's not really, it was probably more formal thing. I mean, she's leaving. Orpah's not just kissing her and saying goodbye, I'll see you later. No, Orpah's kissing her and going back and like never going to see Ruth again. Ruth is going to Judah. Way over here, Orpah is going back to Moab. She's going to get married. She's going to have her own family. Orpah is going to have her own family over there. She didn't know about Ruth. She had a husband, didn't have any kids by him, right? So she's got to go. So she's completely like apart from the family now, a Ruth family. She's no longer in Naomi's family. She's going to go back and have a different family in Moab. Ruth, so she kissed her, not just goodbye, but kissed her for good. Goodbye. Goes back, but Ruth clung to her. Oh, how do we know that Orpah went? Look at it. Then she said, then Naomi, right here, Naomi. So look over here. So Naomi said, see now. No, okay, look, said Naomi. Okay. Then Naomi said, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, do not plead with me to leave you, return back. Okay. So Naomi says, look, Ruth, Orpah has gone back to her people, her gods. Go and follow Orpah. Ruth is like, do not plead with me to leave. I'm staying with you. So we know Ruth is staying and Orpah went back. Clung. So we're going to look it up in the NASB. The ESV, the word clung might be different because they have different scholars. The people who translated the NET are different scholars, most likely, than people who translated the CSB. Those are different scholars, most likely, than the one translating NASB. So just for consistency, since you got the same scholars that are doing this one, we'll look up clung in the NASB. Different translators will use different words, right? So this will help us stay consistent. But you who clung to the Lord are alive today, every one of you. Okay, you clung to the Lord and they're alive. Yep. You're not alive because you're like, hey, God, I love you, and I'm going to try to do what you say. And no, you're alive because, Lord, you are my life. You know, the demons believe in God and they shudder with fear. That's in the book of James. Well, they believe in one God and they shudder with fear. You know, there are people that are like, Lord, in the, Lord, we did this in your name. We did that in your name. And Jesus is going to say, dudes, I never knew you. If you think about it, it's, hey, you never really knew me. These people didn't cling to Jesus. Okay. Ruth, Lord, he clung. He rose up and struck until his hand was weary and it clung to the sword. Struck the Philistines. So some dude rising up, striking the Philistines until his hand was weary and it clung to the sword. Did it like your hand gets stiff? You know, you wake up in the middle of the night and it gets stiff. You're sitting like watching a movie, and then you're like, I gotta, it's 45 minutes in the movie. Okay, I gotta go to the restroom. And your arm like stays. Then you're like, because. So he's been holding the dishwasher all the time. I'd be holding the dishwasher thing. Sometimes my hand would get stiff. One time as a dishwasher, I hit my hand and my finger stuck that way. I had to get a doctor. He had to give me a shot. And then, it was weird. Anyway, is that what I mean? I don't know. I mean, it says he struck the foot into his hand. Maybe it clung because like he just doesn't want to let it go. He's fighting so bad. I'm just not going to let go of it, period. And the Lord brought a great victory that day. Okay, good. So it clung to him and the Lord brought a great victory. And he was weary. He's still, you'd think if you're weary, you wouldn't be able to hold your sword. Maybe he was so weary, whenever you're like in sports, people start getting tired and then they start kicking butt. That extra adrenaline rushes in. Okay. You shall not associate these. Solomon clung to these in the full chapter. Okay. Now, King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh. It's not, the daughter of Pharaoh was not, the daughter of Pharaoh was also foreign, but like his wife was was the daughter of Pharaoh. So Solomon, son of David and Goliath, David's like, God said, hey, David's a man after my own heart. God said, hey, you've done bad stuff, David, but don't worry. I still love you. God said, I made an everlasting promise with David. Jesus came from the line of David. God would tell kings, they're like, hey, you're doing bad stuff, but because of the promises I made to David, okay, David is an important dude. Solomon is his son, the next king. God says, hey, I'm going to make you a great nation, Solomon. Solomon should have been Hebrew of Hebrews. He shouldn't have been marrying people like Pharaoh's daughter from Egypt. Egypt was the enemies of Israel. Am I saying Solomon couldn't love them as in love your neighbors yourself? No, of course he could have. Of course. But you want to marry believers. You want your family to be believers. King Solomon loved many foreign women. That's no good. That's no good. Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, Hittite women from the nations which the Lord has said to the sons of Israel, you shall not associate with them. Come on, Solomon. God was like, don't associate with these people, nor shall they associate with you. They will certainly turn your heart away to follow their gods. Solomon clung to these in love. For Solomon, okay, when Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away to follow other gods. His heart was not wholly devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of his father David had been. For Solomon became a follower of Ashtoreth, the gods of the Sidonians, Milcom, the abhorrent idol of the Ammonites. Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, did not follow the Lord fully, as his father David had done. I do this all the time. I want to follow God, do something stupid. Solomon built high places. Look, all because, look at this. Where was it at? Here's the introduction sentences. Right there. I think we probably stop it. Okay. Now, Solomon loved many foreign women, along with daughters of Moab, Ammonite, Edom, from the nations which the Lord said, you shall not associate with them, and they shall not associate with you. They will certainly turn your heart to fall away from their gods. Solomon clung to these in love. And look what happened. Clung to them in love. Nevertheless, he clung to the sins of Jeroboam. Why would you cling to the sins? Come on. Over here. Oh, he clung to the Lord. Good. There's a king. I bet that's Josiah. So Hezekiah or Josiah. Let's go see. Hezekiah. Oh, Josiah was after Hezekiah. So. Okay. Good. We have at least one king clinging to the Lord. All right. Ruth clung to her. Pretty cool, huh? Like, hey, I am not leaving. Solomon clung so tightly to his wives. He had forward worshiping foreign gods. You serious? God talked to Solomon. God gave Solomon wisdom. Solomon's dad was King David. And Solomon, but since Solomon clung to his wives, he then became like them. He did like them. He went with them. He started worshiping their idols. Hezekiah clung to God. He did a lot of good things. He turned the city around. The city was fixing to be destroyed by the enemies. Hezekiah was like, God, you destroy the enemies. And God did. And he saved the day. Hezekiah clung to God. God saved it. So this, I'm going to guess, is like super duper loyalty, in other words. Okay. She clung tightly to her. So we think of kiss like a physical action. Ruth would clung and you hold. Maybe that happened, but this is more saying like, so Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, meaning she went on her way. She said goodbye. I wish you well. I wish you the best. Ruth is like, no, I'm clean. I'm staying with you. Hey, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay with you. It's more the concept, right? So I'm clinging to my shoulder. Then Naomi said, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Okay. Her people are Moabites. Her gods. Who are the Moabite gods? Why would she say her people and her gods? Why not? Hey, your sister has gone back. Why not mention the husband thing again? Your sister has gone back to her people to get a husband because that's what she's talking about earlier. And no longer it's like No longer it's hey, husband this, husband that, Now it's your people and your gods, small g. They were super duper prevalent back then. Prevalent. There was a lot of them. Everybody thought they were gods. God this, gods of that. Everything had a god. They called them angels. They called them messengers. They called them spirits. They called them all sorts of stuff, right? God of this, God of that. They didn't think necessarily of a God as the person who created the whole world. They didn't think of the God as like we think of this is the God, he created everything. He makes everything keep going. If he weren't here, none of this would be here. Okay, that's not the kind of God. Okay, it could have just been angels, could have been demons. What they thought of as gods, just spiritual beings who did stuff. You worship your spiritual, yes, it really was. You worship your spiritual being and hopes that they will do good stuff for you. Each country, in fact, had a god of its own. I mean, hey, let's look this up real quick. I'm gonna type in the word gods. Okay. Full chapter. Laban pursues Jacob. Jacob. Oh, Laban. Remember. Jacob saw Rachel, who was Laban's daughter. Dude, it's all coming around, is it? Jacob saw. So Jacob's pursuing Laban. Why? Laban, vice versa. Laban pursuing. Why? When Laban was informed on the third day, Jacob had fled. Jacob. Okay. God came to Laban. Be careful that you do not speak to the. So hey, don't be messing with Jacob. Either group. Okay. Laban caught up with Jacob. Jacob said, okay, what have you done by deceiving me? I did not tell me. I did not. Okay. Then Laban said to Jacob, what have you done by deceiving me and carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword? Laban's daughter was Rachel. His daughter is also Leah. Jacob married both of them. Yes, like I said, they did that. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me, Jacob, and did not tell me, so I might have sent you away with joy and with song, with tambourine, with lyre? Instead of kissing you or weeping, I would have sent you away with songs and joy, and did not allow me to kiss my grandchildren, my granddaughters. Right? Jacob took his daughters and his grandkids. Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to speak either good or bad to Jacob. Now indeed you have gone, because you long greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Steal your gods? How can you steal a god? How can you, like, God's an invisible spirit, and there's only one of them. How can you steal gods, plural? Even like I said back then, they worshiped gods. They thought there were different gods, right? Each nation had its own god. They had many gods. I mean, we just read about Solomon worshiping all these gods. How can you take gods? How can he steal? You can't steal like spiritual things, because they all thought when they said gods with a little g, and they meant more like spirits. They meant more like heavenly beings. How can you steal that? You can't take that. You can't kidnap a god. I mean, he stole let's see. You've done carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword, like captives. Hey, Jacob is married to them. But you could have let the dad said goodbye. I don't know. Well, someday maybe we'll go through, we'll get more into this. So, yeah, go study it for yourself. Go look up this whole story. It's kind of fun. Jacob and Rachel and Leah and Laban. Look up this story. Okay. So, you stole my, why did you flee secretly and deceive me? Did not tell me, so I might have sent you joy son. Grandchildren, my granddaughters. So, I mean, he stole them, quote unquote, stole. How can, they're people. You can kidnap them. He didn't kidnap them, but you could do that, He could have stole other stuff from Jacob. He could have taken his sheep and grain and his wagons, I guess. They use wagons a lot. Now, he could have done stuff like that. Stole my gods? Okay. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Okay, look at this. Because I was afraid. Okay, so Jacob replied to Laban, I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Okay. The one with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, point out what is yours among my belongings and take it for yourself. Now, Jacob did not know Rachel had stolen the gods. You got gods you can steal. Yeah. I don't know. Idols. I was with a guy who worked at Kroger. He was an Indian guy, like Indian from India. I'm not sure if he was Hindu. I think I asked him about religious, and I think he said he was not religious, but he believes in gods and stuff. I was like, okay. I said, what? He gave me a ride home one night. I said, what's that? And on his dashboard, there was a little hump-looking thing. I'm not sure, how to describe it. It was a little short, about an inch tall. It was like a curve, kind of a little hump in it. I said, what's that? And he said, that's my God. He's using the word God in a different way than we Christians use the word God. We think of, that's my God. Well, yeah, obviously he's the only God. Okay. But we know there are spirits, there are angels and demons, could be ghosts and stuff, Well, he's saying he's in the story, gods, more than one God. People from India, Hindu type people, Buddhists, people from Far East, Sikhs, there's people called animists, where some people in North America, some people in America, Wiccan or New Age or other stuff. I sound very ignorant of it. I'm naming the very surface level stuff that we've all heard of. They have gods, quote unquote, and think there's more gods. We Christians say there's one God, but then there's a bunch of spirits and stuff. They say there are gods. They call all of them gods. The guy from India, he's got a little idol. He says, that's my God. Does he mean the little idol, the little hump thing that was on his dashboard? Does he mean that is God literally? I'm not really sure. I mean, Rachel had taken the teraphim, the household gods, and put them in camel saddlebags. She sat on them. So Laban's got gods. Okay. She takes these gods. So I'm guessing they're like idols that you can pick up, idols that you can carry and stuff. Watch this. If you're like, hey, what are you doing, BJ? I was expecting a Ruth Bible study. I told you, if you hadn't watched the other study alongs, the Bible study along, you haven't watched the other study alongs, then you're going to be confused. Like, why is he getting bogged down in detail? This is what we do. One piece. No, I'm going to say one part. You're like, BJ, what are you thinking of? One half. I bet it's one half. I bet it's one half. Isaiah. Yes. I found it. I scanned it real quick with my eyes. I just, I'm looking at the screen and just boop, But now listen, Jacob, my servant, Israel, whom I've chosen. Remember, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Isaiah was during the time of all those bad kings, but then during the time of Hezekiah, who clung to God. Isaiah and Hezekiah had conversations. Isaiah was like, don't trust the bad guys are going to beat you. Don't trust in your military, just trust in God. Hezekiah goes in and prays, says, God, I trust in you. He clung to him and God saved the day. Pretty cool. This is the same Isaiah right here. Let's see some of Isaiah's prophecies. Now listen, Jacob, my servant Israel, whom I have chosen. This is what the Lord says. He who made you. Okay. Do not fear Jacob. That's good. Control F. Okay. Here we go. The foolishness of idolatry. Yeah. Those who fashion an idol are all futile, and their treasured things are of no benefit. Now you're like, oh, an idol can be anything. Like if you play video games too much, that can be an idol. You can make your family an idol. You can make work an idol. Yes, but we're talking about physical things that they. Those are physical. We're talking about like statues, pieces of wood carved into an image. You know, and they think the God is in there, or the God meets them there. You know, a rock that they kind of shape and say, this is our God. They think the God would come to the rock, or the God would meet them in the rock, you know? Okay. Those who fashion an idol are futile, and their treasured things are of no benefit. Even their own witnesses fail to see or know, so they will be put to shame. Who has fashioned a God or cast an idol to no benefit? Behold, those who fashion the idol, all his companions will be put to shame. For the craftsmen themselves are men. Who is fashioned a God or cast an idol to no benefit? His companions will be put to shame. Why? Because the craftsmen are just men. Let them all assemble themselves. Let them stand up. Let them tremble. Let them be put to shame together. They're just men. They're just dudes making. Look. They're craftsmen. The craftsman of iron shapes a cutting tool and does his work over the coals, fashioning it with hammers and working with his strong arm. But he also gets hungry and his strength fails. He drinks no water. He becomes weary. He's just a dude. He's making an idol. God's like, seriously? These are y'all's idols? These are y'all's gods made by some dude who gets tired? The craftsman of wood extends a measuring line. Okay, you got to make sure it's just right. Got a line, got to make sure it's just right. The idol, you know, he outlines it with a marker. Yeah, let's draw on the piece of wood. Okay, let's take our tools. We're gonna use the measuring line to measure, okay, 10 feet or here straight across. Okay, drawing it with a marker. He works it with carving knives and outlines it with a compass. A compass that you put a pencil in it and you can make circles with it. Not a compass like north, south, east, west. Makes it like the form of a man, like the beauty of mankind, so it may sit in a house. Your God is going to sit in your house. He will cut cedars for himself, and he takes a holm oak or another oak and lets it grow strong for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants a laurel tree, makes those. So now we're kind of on a different thought. So the craftsman or the person who made the idol. Up here, who has fashioned an idol. The craftsmen are just men. Okay, those who fashion idols, okay. He will cut cedars for himself. He takes an oak or another oak, lets it grow strong for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants a laurel tree and the rain makes it grow. Then it becomes something for a person to burn. So he takes one of them and gets warm. He also makes a fire and bakes bread. Okay, good. You chop down a tree, you use the wood for a fire. You can get warm by it. You can bake some bread. He also makes a god and worships it. Makes a carved image, bows down before it. Half of the wood he burns in the fire. Over this half he eats meat. He roasts and is satisfied. He also warms himself and says, "Aha, I'm warm. I've seen the fire." Yet the rest of it, he makes into a god, his carved image. He bows down before it and worships. He also prays to it and says, "Save me, for you are my God." They do not know, nor do they understand, for he has God, the real God, has smeared over their eyes so they cannot see, and their hearts so they cannot comprehend. No one remembers, nor is there knowledge or understanding to say, "I have burned half of it in a fire, and also have bread and coals. I roast meat and eat it. Then I make the rest of it into an abomination." Oh, it looks like I'm crying. I was kind of laughing. I bow down before a block of wood. The man or the idol, probably the man, he feeds on ashes. A deceived heart has misled the man. And the man cannot say to himself, "Is there no lie in my right hand?" He cannot save himself, and he cannot say, I'm not lying. Is there no lie? No, there's no lie. I'm not lying. He can't even see it. He doesn't even know. That's after Isaiah is well after God has met them for a long time. Tons of stuff. God has made himself known to them over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I mean, the whole book of Judges, there were like 20 judges. God saved them over and over again. 10 plagues out of Egypt, huge plagues, defeated the army. When they're wandering through the desert, a cloud of smoke by day. I mean, they see God, Now, this is granted a few hundred years later. Isaiah and Hezekiah was a few hundred years after Moses, was a few hundred years even after the judges. But they still saw God all the time. They knew the stories. They were told about this. We're told about it. They should have known better. But here, this is before the Exodus. Laban pursues Jacob, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. About, I think, 400 years, something like that. They're in Egypt. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob takes his family. They go down to Egypt. After a few hundred years, they get turned into slaves. Then Moses is born. When he grows up, God, through Moses, saved them. So they don't know God yet. Jacob sees God in a few dreams. He doesn't know everything about him. He's kind of dull anyway. There's gods all over the place. Gods all around him. Jacob has said several times to God, hey, I will worship you if you save me. I will forsake the foreign gods as if the foreign gods are real. To him, they were real. And they could be real. I mean, demons. Jacob, we'll look at that in a moment. Jacob says, hey, I will worship you, God, if you just make me safe. So Jacob doesn't even know God that well, right? So God's not going to sit here and make fun of them like he does over here. They should know better. He's trying to shame them into following him again. Here, they don't know. God's still working with them where they're at. Jacob has much less knowledge about the one true God. Look at this. Jacob went to Laban. Okay. Jacob did not, Rachel had stolen. I bet there are little things. I bet they're little because I bet there are little gods, like it talked about in Isaiah, how they fashioned it with you could have big, huge stone idols, like you think of Stonehenge, or you think of the big giant, statues. But there could be little ones, right? There could be little ones though. Needless to say, she stole them, and they think gods as in the object, the material object that they could hold, that they fashion, but they also think gods as in they're kind of both in the same. Gods as in like these are gods who are spirits, who are mighty and powerful, who rule the unseen world and who control the forces of nature, and they battle with the armies of the people, gods like that. So it's been an hour and 11 minutes. Okay. Maybe next time we can look at 1 Corinthians, where Paul says an idol is nothing. Okay. And the people who worship it worship nothing. And then he says, because, hey, if they worship something, what they're worshiping is not God, it's demons. It's crazy. Paul would say that. Let's look real quick. So over here, 1 second, actually. You can see, do not plead with me to leave you or turn back from following. I will go. Okay. Then Naomi said to Ruth, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. She's gone back to her people. She's gone back to her gods. Okay, now you understand. Gods are gods of nations. Each nation has a different god. Okay. Deuteronomy 32. Is this correct? Maybe 34. No, the death of Moses. Okay. I'll look it up again later. But he talks about the God giving the nation over to principalities and powers, stuff like that. you know. Okay. 1 Corinthians 8. Now, concerning food sacrificed to idols. Okay. Concerning food sacrificed to idols. Okay. You got food, you sacrifice it to God. Sacrifice the food to idols. We know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge makes one conceited, but love edifies people. If anyone thinks he knows anything, he has not known as he ought to know. You think you know something, you're out and you get off your high horse. But if anyone loves God, he's known by God. Pretty sweet. Therefore, concerning eating food sacrificed to idols. So you got an idol, you sacrifice food to it. It doesn't all get burned up. It doesn't all go away. You eat it. Okay. You're like, hey, this is the food for you. Some of it's left over. The God doesn't eat it all. The priests of the idol, they don't eat it all, you know. So we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, that there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or earth, as indeed there are many gods, many lords, yet for us, there's only one God, the Father, for whom all things, and we exist in him, and one Lord Jesus Christ, by whom all things we exist in him. However, not all people have this knowledge. Okay? Not all people have the knowledge that there was only one God. There might be many gods and lords, but there's only one true God. Not all people have this knowledge. Some, being accustomed to the idol, eat food as if it were sacrificed to an actual idol. Okay, the idol is nothing. It's nothing. But people don't know that. And they eat food as if it were sacrificed. Their conscience being weak is defiled. Now, food will not bring us close to God. We're neither worse if we do not eat, nor better if we do. But take care that this freedom of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. Okay. If someone sees you, the one who has knowledge, dining in an idol's temple. If someone sees you, the one who has knowledge, dining in an idol's temple. So a person from the outside, they see me who has not, I'm in an idol's temple, I'm eating the food, and they go, wait, because I know it's not an idol. I know it's nothing. They see me and they go, hey, why is he in that idol's temple? He's worshiping that. Okay. If he is weak, will his conscience be strengthened to eat things sacrificed to idols? I know it's not an idol. That person doesn't know it's not an idol. I'm eating the food that's just, it doesn't matter because it's just food. This person eats it as if the idol's real and he's eating food sacrificed to an actual God. No good. For through your knowledge, the one who's weak is ruined. The brother or sister for whose sake Christ died. And so, by sinning against a brother and wounding their conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, I will never eat meat again. Okay. I missed something in here. One second, guys. Okay, here we go. Full chapter. All right. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. So don't be worshiping idols. I speak to you as wise people, then judge what I say. Is the cup of blessing, which we bless, not as sharing in the blood of Christ. Don't sacrifice it. Don't go to no idol. The cup of blessing is Christ. The bread which we break, not idols' food, but the bread which we break is a sharing in the body of Christ. Since there's one loaf, we who are many are one body, for we all partake of one loaf. Look at the people of Israel. Are those who eat the sacrifices not partners in the altar? Don't go to the idol's temple and eat the food. What do I mean then? That food sacrificed to idol is anything, or then idol is anything? No. But I say that okay, so he's repeating himself. Look, it's not anything. But the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons, not to God. I don't want you to become partners with demons. You can't drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You can't partake of the table of the Lord and table of demons. Are we provoking the Lord to jealousy? We're not stronger than he, are we? Oh, no, I'm not stronger than God. To demons, not God. If they sacrifice to an idol, Okay. And there really is something behind that idol. It's not God. It's not a so-called God. Demons. No good. Okay, guys. You heard that noise? That's not telling me to get off. That's my phone, my boss saying, texting me to tell me something from work. So now that we've talked about, we've gone back to hurt people and hurt God, return to sister-in-law. Now that we got through 1, 2 verses, okay, we'll come back next time and we'll talk about verses, I don't know, maybe 16, 17, 18, we'll talk about them. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me for another Ruth Very Basic Bible Study. Let's read real quick, okay? My phone might go off again, but I'm going to read this real quick, okay? Now, it came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land. I'm not going to follow it with a mouse. Okay. Now, it came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land. A man of Bethlehem in Judah went to reside in the land of Moab with his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites of Bethlehem in Judah. So they entered the land of Moab and remained there. Then Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. And they took for themselves Moabite women as wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they lived there about 10 years. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and the woman, Naomi, was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then Naomi arose with her daughter-in-laws to return from the land of Moab, because she had heard in the land of Moab that the Lord had visited his people, Judah, by giving them food. So she departed from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "Go, return each of you to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly as you have dealt with the dead, her husbands, her kids, and with me. May the Lord grant that you may find a place of rest, each one of you in the house of her new husband." Then she kissed them, and they raised their voices and wept. However, Naomi and Orpah said to her, "No, but we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may be your husbands?" So she's stuck on the husband thing. Her husband just died, and then her daughter's husbands died. "Return, my daughters, go, for I am too old to have a husband. If I said I have hope, if I were even to have a husband tonight and also give birth to sons, would you therefore wait until they were grown? Would you therefore remain from marrying?" I'm sorry, guys. "No, my daughters, for it is much more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has come out against me." And they raised their voices and wept again. Okay. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Then Naomi said to Ruth, "Behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, and now we're done. Okay, guys, been a fun Bible study along. My boss is actually having a baby, right? So they're texting a lot, his wife's having a baby. So they're actually texting a lot. And so that's just the way it is. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. And we'll say a prayer real quick, okay? Share screen. Google. Prayers in the Bible. There we go. Let's look real quick. Powerful prayers in the Bible. All prayers are powerful. Okay. Your faith makes them powerful, but most importantly, actually, God makes them powerful. You could even have no faith and God would still, so don't worry. Okay. I'm going to read this prayer. Okay. Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in the Lord, and the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in the Lord's deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one beside you, God. There's no rock like our God. I like that. Thank you, God, for being our rock. And let us rejoice only in you and no other. Let us boast only in you, not in the gods. Let us cling tightly to you. Thank you, Lord. Amen. See you guys later.